My parents left me at 8 to save my sister, then came back years later begging me to fix her. Hi, I'm Nathan, 27, and the last time I saw my parents in person, they were banging on my front door with my sister in tow, demanding I save her life. I hadn't spoken to them in over a year. They showed up uninvited, faces full of entitlement and desperation, because the golden child was flailing. The one they abandoned me to save. Let me rewind to when it all started falling apart, and when I finally decided to let it. I was 8 when my parents left me with Uncle Ray. It wasn't a tearful goodbye or some dramatic exit. It was clinical. My sister Allison had been diagnosed with leukemia at 6, and apparently, my emotional and physical needs were now secondary. They told me it was temporary. Just until Allison got better. That, just until, stretched 9 years. Uncle Ray was my dad's older brother, a mechanic who lived in a small town about 3 hours away. Divorced, no kids, always smelled like WD-40 and grilled meat. His house had 1 bathroom, no dishwasher, and the warmest kitchen I've ever stood in. When my parents left me there, I had 1 duffel bag, a box of Legos, and no idea what I'd done wrong. Uncle Ray never tried to replace them. He didn't sugarcoat anything. He said, "Kid, I don't know why they did this, but while you're here, you're mine, and I look after what's mine." That man kept his word. He came to every school event, fixed every broken science project, and taught me how to drive stick in his beat-up Chevy pickup. Every Sunday we grilled. Every Wednesday, we changed oil or brakes or spark plugs. He called it mechanical therapy. Meanwhile, my parents called once a month, like clockwork, and only ever to update me on Allison's treatments. Never asked how school was going. Never sent birthday gifts. Never remembered when I lost my first tooth or made the honor roll. I was a monthly voicemail check-in to them. Allison was the sun around which their entire world spun. But Ray? He showed up. He was there when I hit puberty and freaked out over my voice cracking. He was there when I had my first heartbreak and just handed me a greasy wrench and said, "Let's go fix something loud." When I was 14, Allison relapsed. My parents didn't even call to tell me. I found out from Ray, who heard it through a family friend. And when I turned 18, they didn't even show up to my high school graduation. Ray did, wearing a suit that didn't fit and cheering louder than anyone. He gave me a key that night. To the garage. "You're a man now. This place is yours too." I cried in the damn parking lot. So when my parents showed back up 9 years later, expecting me to play family again because Allison was floundering in adulthood, I gave them the only welcome they deserved. A locked door. And what happened next? Yeah, that was just the beginning. I didn't open the door at first. Just stared through the peephole at the people I barely recognized. My mom in a cardigan 2 decades out of style, eyes puffy like she'd already been crying for hours. My dad in a cheap windbreaker, mouth pressed into that familiar disapproving line. And between them Allison. She looked like a shell of the sister I used to kind of know. Thinner than I expected. Hollow-eyed. Dressed like someone trying way too hard to look like they weren't trying at all. I almost didn't recognize her. The pounding came again. Then Dad's voice. "Nathan, open up. We're here to talk." I opened the door a sliver. Not for them. For curiosity. Like watching a car crash. "Talk about what?" I said flatly. "Last time I checked, we weren't on speaking terms." My mom's eyes welled instantly. "Please, sweetheart. Can we come in?" "No." Allison actually looked relieved by that. Dad stepped forward, trying to wedge his foot in the gap. "Your sister's going through something. She needs her brother. It's time to put all this childish bitterness behind us." Childish. That word burned hotter than I expected. I stepped back, opened the door just wide enough to speak clearly. "Childish? You dumped me at Uncle Ray's when I was 8. You visited 3 times in 9 years. You left me there like I was some extra piece of luggage you couldn't carry. And now you want to throw around guilt like I'm the one who broke this." Allison winced like I'd slapped her. Dad's face hardened. "She's struggling. She can't find a job. She's depressed. She needs help." "She needs help?" I said. "And you came to me?" "Why? You've been strangers for almost 2 decades. Why the hell would I be the one to fix her now?" "Because you're her brother," Mom cried. "Because you're successful, and stable, and not your kid anymore." I snapped. "Uncle Ray is my family. You're just people who made choices. Choices I lived with." And survived. Barely. There was a pause. The kind of silence that feels like a held breath before a scream. Then Allison spoke. Quiet. Fragile. I didn't ask for this. I didn't ask for any of it. I met her eyes. Neither did I. I shut the door. And for one long breathless second I thought that would be it. That they'd leave. I underestimated just how entitled desperate people can get when the child they forgot becomes the man they suddenly need. They came back the next day. But not alone. They brought paperwork. And a pitch. The next morning, they were back on my porch like door-to-door salespeople, except instead of Bibles or vacuum cleaners, they brought a manila folder and the audacity of the damned. I opened the door before they could knock. I was holding a coffee and my phone. Calm. Controlled. Barefoot. The picture of, "You're not welcome here. Third time's a pattern," I said. "You planning on moving in?" Allison stood a few feet back this time, arms crossed, wearing an old hoodie that may have once been mine. Mom smiled like that would soften the blow. "We just want to talk," she said. "Then use a phone like normal people." Dad held up the folder like it was a winning lottery ticket. We brought Allison's resume. She's applying for jobs in communications. You work in engineering. Maybe you could help her get in somewhere. Recommend her. Put in a good word. I blinked once. Slowly. "You think you can knock on my door after vanishing for years, and ask for networking help?" "She's your sister," Dad said. "No. She's your daughter," I corrected. "The one you chose. I was the one you left behind. You made that distinction perfectly clear. Don't rewrite history because it's convenient now." Dad's jaw tightened like he wanted to lecture me into submission. But he didn't get the chance. Allison stepped forward, pulling the folder from his hand. "Stop. This was a mistake." "Allison." Mom started. "No," she said, finally making eye contact with me. "This isn't how you fix things. We can't just show up and pretend this didn't happen. I'm sorry. I really am." It sounded real. But not real enough. "You're not the one who has to apologize," I said. "And even if you were, this isn't about resumes or interviews. This is about 18 years of silence. Of missed birthdays. Of not even knowing what my favorite food is." She looked like she wanted to say something else, but then Mom cut in again, classic. "Nathan, your sister is fragile right now. She's barely holding it together. You have a great life. Would it kill you to just help her? Would it kill me?" I took a long sip of coffee. "No. But it would cost me everything I built to survive what you did." Dad raised his voice then. "This is revenge. That's all this is. You're punishing us for something we had no control over. We had to save Allison. She was dying." "I know," I said. "You saved her. You sacrificed everything for her. Including me." Silence. Then Allison whispered, "I didn't know it was this bad for you. I really didn't." "I believe you," I said. "But that doesn't change anything." She turned and walked back to their car. Folder still in hand. No tantrum. No manipulation. Just leaving. Mom followed, wiping tears that felt more performative than real. Dad stayed a second longer. Looked me dead in the eye and said, "You'll regret this someday." I smiled. "Maybe. But it won't be today." He left. I stood in the doorway until they drove away. Then I locked the deadbolt, closed the blinds, and for the first time in years, felt completely in control of my own life. But they weren't done. Not by a long shot. The emails started that night. At first, just one from my mom. The subject line, "Please just read." It was 5 paragraphs of syrupy guilt, sprinkled with phrases like, "Healing the past," and "Your poor sister," and of course, the grand finale, "We're still your parents." Right. The next one came from Dad. Way shorter. One line, "You're better than this." I deleted both without responding. Allison didn't email. She didn't text. She just disappeared again like smoke after a failed fire. I respected that. But my parents? They turned up the heat. The next morning, I had a voicemail from a woman named Rachel, someone I hadn't spoken to since sophomore year of high school. Apparently, my mom had contacted her on Facebook, told her Allison was in a very dark place, and asked if she could talk to Nathan, since he clearly listens to old friends more than family. I listened to the voicemail 3 times. Not because I was considering calling her back, but because I couldn't believe how far they were willing to dig through my past like archaeologists in a guilt museum. 2 days later, a knock at the door. I didn't answer. Then came the letter. A literal handwritten letter slid under my front door in my mother's delicate cursive like this was the 1800s and I was being summoned to the family estate. It started with, "My sweet boy," which was rich considering she hadn't used that phrase since I was in footy pajamas. The rest was a carousel of emotional manipulation. She missed me, they made mistakes, Allison needed a job, Allison was seeing a therapist now, Allison cried at night and said she missed her brother, and wouldn't I consider coming to dinner just once to talk? I read it once. Then I tore it in half and tossed it in the recycling bin. And that night, I did what I should have done weeks ago. I booked a lunch with Uncle Ray. We met at a diner halfway between our towns. He was already sitting at a booth when I walked in, reading the newspaper like some relic from a better era. When I slid into the seat across from him, he didn't even look up. "Your dad's been sniffing around my shop," he said, flipping the page. "Seriously?" "Yeah. Asked if I'd talk some sense into you." I told him the last time I saw sense near him, it was on fire and screaming. I snorted. He finally looked up, folded the paper, and gave me that look part concerned, part proud, all Uncle Ray. "You good, Nate?" I thought about it. Then nodded. "Getting there." He nodded back. "Good. Because they're going to keep coming. They don't know how to lose." "I'm not playing," I said. "I'm done." Ray smiled a little. "Took you long enough. I thought that'd be it." But then he added something. "But if they try showing up again, call me. I'll come down and remind your old man how bad he is at fights." We laughed over coffee. Talked about engine blocks and bad diner toast. Didn't mention Allison once. For the first time in weeks, I slept like a rock. But the next morning, I got a text that cracked the whole situation wide open. It wasn't from my parents. It was from Allison. One sentence: "I didn't know you tried to come home when I was 11. My stomach dropped. Because I hadn't told her that. Only they knew that. And suddenly, I realized they were rewriting history in real time. That message hit like a gut punch. "I didn't know you tried to come home when I was 11. I stared at my phone, fingers frozen over the keyboard. I hadn't thought about that day in years, shoved it into the mental storage closet labeled "too painful, top shelf." But yeah, I remembered it perfectly. I was 13. Allison had just gone into remission for the first time, and I'd gotten it in my head that maybe it was finally time. I'd bought a Greyhound ticket with money I'd saved from mowing lawns, packed a duffel bag with clothes and a photo of me and her as toddlers in a kiddie pool, and showed up on my parents' doorstep 3 towns over. I knocked for 20 minutes. When Dad finally answered, he looked at me like I was a solicitor. "What are you doing here?" he asked. No hug. No smile. No warmth. I said, "I thought maybe I could come home. Just for a little while." He stared at me. Then said, "This isn't a good time. Allison needs quiet. Her immune system is still compromised." Then he shut the door. That was it. Uncle Ray never mentioned it again. Neither did I. It became one of those quiet trauma moments you bury under work, jokes, and sarcasm. But Allison knowing about it now? That meant one of them told her. And not just told her their version. I texted back. "What did they say?" She replied within seconds. "That you came to the house screaming, demanding to move back in. That you scared me. That they had to ask you to leave because you were being aggressive." I had to sit down. Aggressive? I was 13. 90 pounds soaking wet. I'd shown up with a duffel bag and hope. And they turned it into a threat. I replied. "That's a lie." "I knocked." I asked. He said no and closed the door. That's all that happened. No reply for a full hour. Then, finally, "I believe you." And just like that, the ground shifted under my feet. Because for the first time in this whole mess, Allison wasn't defending them. She wasn't asking for favors. She wasn't parroting their version of events. She was listening. Later that night, she sent a second message. "Can I ask something? Not as your sister. Just as someone trying to understand." Shoot. Why didn't you ever try again? After that? I stared at that one for a long time. Then I wrote. Because once someone shows you they'll let the door close on you when you're hurting, you don't give them another chance to do it louder. She didn't reply after that. And for the first time since this whole storm started, I didn't feel angry. I just felt tired. Tired of being the problem solver. The bridge builder. The adult in a family that never gave me the chance to be a kid. Uncle Ray called that night. You holding up? Barely. He sighed. They'll twist everything, you know. Rewrite the whole story until they're the heroes. I know. You gonna let him? I looked at my phone. At Allison's last message. Then I shook my head, even though he couldn't see me. No, I said. I think it's time I tell the truth. I wrote the letter at 3 a.m. on a Tuesday. Not a rage-filled manifesto. Not a dramatic tell-off. Just the truth. In plain language. For one person. Allison. It was 5 pages long. Typed. No flowery language. No guilt-tripping. Just facts. I told her everything. About how they dropped me off with Uncle Ray with a 2-week duffel and never looked back. About the birthdays they forgot. The graduation they missed. The phone calls that only ever asked about her platelets or bone scans. I told her how I used to sit on Ray's porch at night and imagine my parents pulling up with balloons and apologies. How every time the phone rang after 9 p.m. I secretly hoped it was Mom saying, "Come home." And I told her the story about the Greyhound. Word for word. How I stood on the porch with my duffel bag and a photo of the two of us in a kiddie pool. How Dad looked at me like I was selling Bibles. How he told me, "It's not a good time." And how the door clicked shut so quietly it felt like the world saying, "Don't bother." I ended the letter with this. I don't hate you, Allison. I never did. But I don't know you either. And I'm not the one who made that choice. I sent it by email. No subject line. No introduction. Just hit send. And sat back, fully expecting either silence or a wave of accusations. What I didn't expect. A reply 4 hours later. Subject I didn't know. It was short. Staggeringly so. I didn't know any of that. I'm so sorry. I don't think I have the right to ask anything from you. But I hope someday you'll let me earn back the chance to be your sister. I read that line at least 10 times. Let me earn back the chance to be your sister. It didn't fix everything. It didn't erase the damage. But it was honest. And that meant something. I didn't reply right away. I needed space. Time. Air. But I didn't delete it. Didn't block her. That alone was a seismic shift. 2 days later, I got a voicemail from Mom. She was sobbing. The kind of sobbing you record hoping it'll move someone to pity. She said she read my letter. That Allison had shown it to her. That she didn't realize how deep the hurt had gone. She said she wanted to talk. Just me and her. Mother to son. I deleted it. Then Dad called. Left one of those angry, huffy voicemails where he clearly wanted to say sorry but couldn't get the words past his pride. Said I was making a circus out of a personal situation. Said I was manipulating Allison with guilt. Right. Because telling the truth was manipulation now. I didn't respond to that one either. But I did do something else. I printed out a copy of the letter I sent Allison. And I mailed it. To every single person in the family who'd ever asked. Why don't you talk to your parents more? Aunts. Cousins. Grandma. Even my godfather, who I hadn't spoken to since I was 15. No drama. No commentary. Just the truth. If they were going to talk about me behind my back, I was going to make damn sure they had the correct script. The fallout was immediate. By Friday, my phone was a live wire. Missed calls. Voicemails. Texts from numbers I hadn't seen since prom season. And Carla. I had no idea, Nathan. I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Uncle Brian. You should have told us. We would have taken you in ourselves. Grandma left a voicemail that started with, "Oh, honey," and dissolved into sobs. But the one that stopped me cold came from my cousin Leo. Same age. Same awkward middle school haircuts. Same birthday even. We used to be close before I vanished into the Allison crisis vortex. His text said, "They always said you were angry for no reason. I get it now. I'm with you. Just tell me what you need." I stared at it for a while. Didn't reply. But I smiled. Because for once someone saw me. The letter had ripped the mask off. And my parents? They panicked. It started with a family group email from Dad titled, "Let's set the record straight." It was 5 paragraphs of vintage deflection. Said I'd exaggerated events. That my version of things was colored by bitterness. Claimed they had done the best they could under impossible circumstances. And regret any hurt I might have perceived. Like pain was just a mood. They wrapped it all in a bow of, "We hope one day Nathan can find it in his heart to forgive us and return to the family." I didn't reply. I didn't have to. Because Aunt Carla did. Her response? 2 sentences. That was not an apology. That was a PR statement. "Sit down, Ron." Then Leo chimed in. "You abandoned him. Own it." Then Grandma. "I always wondered why he stopped visiting. Now I know. I'm ashamed of us." One by one, the thread turned. And the people who once parroted my parents' narrative that I was cold or moody, or just never liked coming around, started rewriting their internal scripts too. For the first time in my life, I wasn't the shadow in the corner of Allison's hospital room. I was a real person. With a real story. And people were listening. Meanwhile, Allison sent another message. "I told them to stop. I said if they tried to contact you again, I'll block them too. I don't want to be part of their gaslighting anymore." I replied. "That means more than you know." Then she sent something that nearly knocked the wind out of me. A photo. From when we were 5 and 3, sitting in a plastic kiddie pool, covered in popsicle juice and grinning like idiots. I hadn't seen that picture in almost 20 years. She'd written under it, "This is the version of us I want to find again. If we ever can." I didn't know how to answer that. So I didn't. Not yet. Instead, I called Uncle Ray. Told him everything. The letter. The family response. Allison's message. The photo. He didn't say much. Just let me finish. Then he exhaled and said, "You cracked the truth wide open, kid. Now you get to decide what happens next." And I knew he was right. They had spent years trying to write my story for me. But now I held the pen. The next time my parents reached out, they didn't even bother disguising it as an apology. It came from a new Gmail address. Subject line: "Urgent, Victoria is in crisis." Yeah. That urgent tone? The one they'd used when they dumped me at 8? Still just as manipulative. The message was short. 5 lines. No greeting. "Victoria attempted something last night. We're terrified. She says she needs her brother. We're begging for your help. Please, Nathan." I stared at it, jaw clenched, chest tight. They'd finally gone nuclear. Dragging mental health into it like a weapon. Like a bargaining chip they could lay at my feet to force action. Not because they cared about reconnecting, but because I was now the only resource left. And suddenly, I realized something chilling. They didn't just want me to fix Victoria. They expected it. Because in their heads, I still owed them. For the food I didn't eat at their table. For the birthdays they didn't show up for. For being the quiet, compliant kid who didn't die. And worse, they were about to use her trauma as a leash. I didn't respond. Instead, I called Allison. She answered on the first ring. Her voice was shaky, but clear. "You saw the email?" "I did." There was a pause. Then, "It's true. I had a rough night. I'm okay now. I've got a therapist. I'm working on things. I'm on meds. I'm trying." I took a breath. "Good. I'm glad you're getting help." Another pause. Then she said something I'll never forget. "I don't want you to come save me, Nate. I don't expect that. I want you to know I'm trying to undo the version of me they built." That landed like a gut punch wrapped in grace. Because that was honest. No manipulation. No guilt. Just an adult woman saying, "I'm responsible for my healing." I told her that. She started crying. Then she said, "I think they're scared. They know they lost the narrative." "Good," I said. Because it was never theirs to begin with. We talked for another 20 minutes. Not about trauma. Not about the past. Just dumb stuff. Movies. Podcasts. The fact she's obsessed with lemon-flavored everything and I still think lemon desserts are a crime against sugar. It was weird. And a little wonderful. The next day, I sent my parents one final message. No emotion. No theatrics. Just lines drawn in ink. Subject: final boundary. Do not contact me again. Not by phone, not by email, not through other people. I wish Victoria the best. I'm glad she's getting help. But her journey is hers, not mine. You don't get to abandon a son for 18 years and then assign him the role of savior. I'm not your backup plan. I'm not your fixer. I'm done. This is not punishment. It's protection. Of my peace. Of my time. Of the life I built in spite of you. Goodbye. Then I blocked the new email address. Blocked their numbers again. Blocked the burner Facebook accounts. Blocked the cousin they used as a go-between. Blocked the noise. And I stood in the middle of my quiet little kitchen, barefoot, phone on the counter, and just breathed. Because this wasn't anger. This was air. This was peace. And for the first time since I was 8 years old, I didn't feel like I was surviving my family. I felt free of them. 6 months passed. Not a single word from them. Not a text. Not a knock. Not even a passive-aggressive message forwarded through a cousin with too much time and not enough spine. Silence. And it was glorious. I filled that space with things that actually mattered. Weekends at Uncle Ray's shop helping rebuild a '74 Camaro from the frame up. Late-night grocery runs with Hannah, my girlfriend of 2 years who swears she fell in love with me the moment I told a cashier I liked bagging my own produce because it restored a sense of control. We hosted a barbecue in July. Real grill, real ribs, real people. Uncle Ray wore an apron that said I break for brisket. My college friends brought games and beers and just good energy. Allison didn't come not because she wasn't welcome, but because she texted. Still working on separating what I want from what they wanted me to be. But someday, I'd like to sit in that backyard and eat overcooked corn with you. I told her I'd save her a plate. No pressure. Just space. Work was great. I got promoted to lead engineer on a logistics tech project, something I dreamed about since college. Built a team. Led meetings. Mentored a couple interns who reminded me way too much of myself at 19, except with better haircuts and worse email etiquette. Uncle Ray finally retired from the high school auto shop and now runs a garage part-time. Just to avoid getting soft. He keeps the old Chevy I learned stick on out front like a totem. I bring him lunch on Fridays. We don't talk about them. Not because it's forbidden. Because it's unnecessary. They're gone. Not physically, not even legally, just spiritually erased from the equation. And I didn't just survive that. I built something from it. One night, Hannah and I were on the couch, watching some baking show where contestants melt down over ganache. She looked at me and said out of nowhere, "You're good at loving people." I laughed. "What?" "You are." Like, quietly. Fully. No strings. I stared at her. "You know where that comes from, right?" She nodded. "You had to learn love the hard way." I thought about that for a long time after she fell asleep. Because she was right. I learned what love wasn't before I understood what it was. It wasn't a gift that came with guilt. It wasn't a reward for obedience. It wasn't a currency to be hoarded and distributed based on who needed saving. Love was showing up. It was listening. It was honesty over performance. And for the first time, my life was full of it. That's what made the final twist so ridiculous. Because just when I thought I'd finally closed the book, I got an envelope in the mail. No return address. Just my name. Inside, a handwritten card in my father's stiff, angular handwriting. 2 lines. "If anything happens to us, you're the executor of the estate. You always were the responsible one." That was it. No apology. No preamble. Just paperwork disguised as a compliment, like being reliable was something I should thank them for. I dropped the card in the shredder. Didn't even hesitate. And then I picked up my phone, ordered Thai food for 2, and texted Allison. "You don't need to respond. Just letting you know they sent something. I'm not engaging. Hope you're still keeping your head above water." She replied 2 hours later. "Thanks for telling me. I blocked them last month. Best sleep I've had in years." And that was that. No dramatic confrontation. No final phone call. Just the quiet peace of a door that had been locked finally from my side. 3 weeks after the envelope incident, I got a call from a blocked number. Normally, I let those go straight to voicemail. But something in my gut said answer it, not fear, not curiosity, just a flicker of unfinished business. I picked up. Allison. She didn't even say hello. "Dad's in the hospital." There was no drama in her voice. Just a flat, exhausted delivery, like she wasn't sure what she felt yet, or if she was allowed to feel anything at all. I didn't ask how bad. I didn't ask which hospital. I didn't ask if this was the part where I was supposed to come running. I said, "Do you want me to come?" Allison went quiet. Then finally, "No. I just thought you should know. I'm not there either. Mom's been calling me nonstop. He's stable. It wasn't a heart attack. Some kind of arrhythmia." He's being dramatic about it, of course. I could hear the eye roll in her tone. "You okay?" I asked. "I'm at my apartment," she said. "A real one. My name's on the lease. No parents. No drama. Just a futon and 3 forks and a life that's mine." That made me smile. "I'm proud of you," I said. "Yeah," she whispered. "I'm kind of proud of me too." We didn't talk long. Just enough to feel tethered. After we hung up, I didn't feel guilt. I felt clarity. Because that call, that entire moment, used to be the kind of thing that would send me spiraling. Wondering if I should do something. Drive down. Send flowers. Play the dutiful son. But I didn't spiral. I just moved on with my day. That weekend, Uncle Ray and I installed new cabinets in his kitchen. Well, I installed them. He mostly shouted instructions while drinking iced tea like a supervisor at a union job site. "You hear from them?" he asked at one point. "Sort of," I said. "Dad's in the hospital. Allison told me." "You going?" "Nope." He nodded like that was the only answer that ever made sense. "Good," he said. "It's not cruel. It's just not your mess anymore." That night, I sat on the porch with a beer in hand and the kind of quiet that used to feel foreign. Not anymore. And I realized something. This was what healing looked like. Not a movie climax. Not a shouting match or some dramatic public reunion. Just silence that didn't ache anymore. Just air that didn't weigh double in your chest. And still the story didn't end. Because trauma doesn't obey clean timelines. It loops. It lingers. It leaves messages under doors and bruises in places you didn't even know could bruise. And when my promotion at work was announced publicly, when my name hit a press release as the new head of system design at a fast-scaling tech firm, they found another way in. Another letter. But this time? Not from them. From their lawyer. It came in a cream envelope with heavy paper stock and my full name printed in bold, Nathaniel D. Carter. I knew what it was before I opened it. My full name always meant someone wanted something. Inside, 3 pages. A letter from a lawyer named Martin Holloway, one of those overly formal types who probably drinks his coffee from a saucer and corrects waiters on French pronunciation. The language was neutral but loaded. "This correspondence is to inform you that your parents, Ronald and Janet Carter, have officially named you executor of their estate as part of their revised living trust." It went on. They were updating their will. Preparing for future considerations. Assigning responsibilities. Listing assets. Seeking your acknowledgement and eventual cooperation. There was a paragraph that caught my eye. "In the event of medical incapacitation or death, you will be responsible for ensuring the health, financial, and emotional welfare of your sister, Victoria Carter, should she require additional care." I read that line 3 times. Then laughed. Out loud. Because there it was again. Buried in legal jargon, "We still think you owe us. We still think you belong to us." It was like they'd taken all the manipulation, all the entitlement, and formalized it with a notary stamp. They were trying to reach from the grave. Trying to script a version of the future where I'd be shackled to them forever by guilt, by obligation, by the same warped definition of family they'd always used like a leash. I took the packet to my lawyer the next day. Yes, I have a lawyer. Uncle Ray made me get one after I bought my house. His name is Matt. He wears hoodies to meetings and always smells like Thai food. He read the letter twice, then looked at me and said, "Do you want to burn this? Or bury it in legal concrete?" "Both," I said. So we drafted a reply. 1 page. 3 paragraphs. Neutral. Boring. Ice cold. I respectfully declined the role of executor, trustee, or designated caretaker in any future capacity related to Ronald and Janet Carter or their estate. I request to be removed from all documentation, present and future. Furthermore, I do not authorize the use of my name, likeness, or legal identity in connection with any plans involving the care or management of Victoria Carter or any related financial concerns. Please consider this communication as a permanent boundary, effective immediately. Matt sent it by registered mail and email. We got a receipt 2 days later. And then? Silence. Not the nervous kind. Not the waiting for reaction kind. The dead kind? The kind of silence that says we lost. And that was when I knew they were done. Not because they'd given up. Because they'd finally realized I wouldn't bend. I wouldn't break. And I wouldn't carry what they kept dropping. Later that night, Allison texted. I didn't sign anything. Just so you know. I'm not going to be their leverage. I sent back. Thank you. For not letting them drag you into it. She replied with a gif of a raccoon flipping over a trash can. We were healing. In weird, awkward, sometimes hilarious ways. But we were healing. And while they were busy planning for death, I was busy living. 2 months passed. The air started to shift. Not just in my life in the family ecosystem I'd left behind. It started with whispers through the grapevine. My cousin Leo messaged me. Your mom's on a campaign again. Telling people you've cut ties over money and you're trying to steal Allison's inheritance. Want me to squash it? I replied. Let them talk. The truth's in writing. They just don't like that it's public now. Still, the noise stirred something old in me that reflexed to defend, to explain, to run quality control on their narratives. But then Hannah looked at me one morning, over eggs and black coffee, and said, You know, you don't have to fight rumors when your life is already proof they're wrong. And I let it go. Because she was right. Every time I showed up for Uncle Ray, every time I fixed something that broke in my own home, every time I mentored a younger engineer or sent Allison a reply that didn't come from a place of resentment, I was disproving their story. Living well was my rebuttal. And living well meant not chasing the ghosts of people who only ever showed up to haunt. Then came the unexpected. Allison asked if she could visit. She didn't phrase it like a demand. Didn't even call it a visit. Just texted one day. I'm gonna be in your city next weekend. No pressure, but I'd love to grab coffee. Your call. I stared at it for a while. Old me would have hesitated. Checked in with everyone. Spun out for hours wondering if it was a trap. Wondering what she really wanted. Knew me? I took a breath, set down my phone, and cleaned the guest room. We met at a small cafe on a quiet Sunday morning. She was already there, sipping tea, wearing a hoodie and no makeup, no performance. Just a woman trying to piece herself together. Hey, she said, standing awkwardly when I walked in. Hey, I replied. We didn't hug. Didn't shake hands. Just sat. The first 10 minutes were weird. Not tense, just full of all the words we didn't say yet. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out a small box. Not wrapped. Just cardboard. Folded tight. I found this cleaning out my old room, she said. Didn't feel right keeping it. I opened it. Inside, an old picture of us in the hospital gift shop when I was 6 and she was 4. She was holding a teddy bear. I was holding her hand. Under it, a plastic dinosaur I hadn't seen since I was a kid. I smiled before I could stop myself. You used to call him Officer Rar, she said. Told me he'd protect me from all the needle monsters. That memory, it cracked something. Thanks, I said. Quietly. We talked for an hour. About nothing and everything. She told me about her new therapist, how they'd called her emotionally orphaned, and she hadn't known whether to laugh or cry. She told me she was off her parents' health insurance. That she'd started freelancing, doing media editing for nonprofits. I'm not whole yet, she said. But I'm not broken for them anymore either. Then she added, I don't want to rewrite history. I just want to build a new chapter where maybe we're something. It didn't fix anything. But it was something real. We didn't hug when we parted. Just exchanged a look, the kind of look that said, we made it. Somehow. Still here. And that night, I put Officer Rar on my bookshelf. Next to a framed photo of me and Uncle Ray covered in grease and laughing over a busted carburetor. Next to my degree. Next to my own name carved on the side of the company laptop I now ran entire teams with. This life? It wasn't a comeback story. It was a survival story. And I was still writing it. Fall rolled in quietly, the kind of slow, golden shift that made the world feel like it was finally exhaling. The leaves outside my place turned that absurd red-orange, the kind that feels almost scripted, like nature's apology for the chaos of summer. Life was still calm. Steady. Remarkably uneventful. And for a guy who once lived under the daily stress of emotional landmines, uneventful was heaven. Uncle Ray came over every Sunday for dinner. It became a tradition, me cooking, him complaining about how no one in this century knows how to roast potatoes right, and then eating 3 full servings like he was training for an eating competition. Hannah started leaving toothbrushes in the bathroom. Then drawer space. Then keys. I didn't panic. Didn't flinch. For once, someone moving closer didn't feel like a threat. It felt earned. But trauma is like a warranty on a broken product, it keeps finding ways to interrupt even when it's long expired. One night, Allison sent me a voice message. Not a text. Not a GIF. A 52-second audio recording. That alone made my chest tighten. I listened with headphones, sitting in the garage where I'd started rebuilding Uncle Ray's ancient motorcycle, the one he swore he'd ride again before he turned 70. Allison's voice came through quiet. Hoarse. Like she'd been crying but didn't want me to know. They're selling the house. The old one. The one we grew up in. Mom said they're downsizing, but I think it's more like running away. She asked if I wanted anything from my room. I told her to throw it all out. She called me dramatic. Said it was still our home? Funny how a place I haven't lived in since middle school suddenly counts again now that it's worth something. Pause. I don't know why I'm telling you this. Maybe because I just wanted to tell someone who wouldn't gaslight me into thinking I'm lucky to have had any of it at all. I listened twice. Then texted. You deserved more. So did I. So we build better now. She didn't reply right away. But when she did, it was just a photo of a sketch, a simple, black ink drawing of 2 kids sitting on a porch. One holding a wrench. One holding a notebook. Both smiling. She titled it, Reconstruction. Yeah. That hit harder than I expected. Later that week, I got a promotion. Senior Director of Systems Engineering. My team threw a surprise party. Hannah brought donuts shaped like gears. Uncle Ray mailed me a wrench engraved with, "Told you, kid." That night, I stood in my kitchen, the one I bought with money I earned, with peace I fought for, and thought about what it had all cost. Not just years. But roots. Every single inch of stability in my life was self-poured concrete. Every relationship I had now? Built on the opposite of what I grew up with. Clarity. Respect. Choice. Allison was still working on herself. Still distancing. Still apologizing in small, thoughtful ways, not for what she did, but for what she missed. We weren't close. But we were trying. And that was enough. Until, of course, I got another knock on the door. This time? Not my parents. This time? It was a process server. And the papers in his hand? They weren't from a law office. They were from a debt collector. Under my name. The envelope was thin. Too thin for something that turned my stomach like that. The guy who handed it to me looked bored, like he was delivering a pizza. "You're Nathan Carter?" "Yeah." He handed it over and walked away without another word. Inside, a letterhead from a third-party debt collection agency. A balance of $14,293.76. Attached? A document showing a personal loan co-signed under my name. Taken out by Ronald and Janet Carter. It was dated 3 years ago, right in the middle of the time I hadn't spoken to them at all. No contact. No permission. No knowledge. They'd used my identity. No warning. No apology. No shame. Just assumed they could put a bill in my lap and I'd bend. I called Matt, my lawyer. He barely waited for me to finish before saying, "This is fraud. We'll crush it." And we did. He filed the dispute. Tracked the source. Had it reversed and flagged. Turns out, they'd faked my consent with an email I never owned. Sloppy. But what hurt most? They hadn't just disrespected my boundaries. They'd gambled with my name. That night, I stood in my driveway holding the shredded pieces of that notice. Uncle Ray leaned on the porch railing behind me. "You okay?" he asked. "No," I said honestly. "But I'm protected now. Legally. Emotionally. Completely." He nodded. "That's the part they never counted on. That you'd grow armor where they left wounds." I burned the paper in my fire pit. Watched it curl and blacken. And when it was ash, I sent one final text to Allison. "If they ever pull you down with them again, walk away. You don't owe them your peace." She replied, "Already did. And for what it's worth, I'm proud of you." 6 months later, she visited again. This time, she stayed in the guest room. We grilled with Uncle Ray. Hannah made jokes. We played cards on the porch. She left a note folded on the pillow. I can't undo the past. But I can show up now. If you'll let me. I haven't replied yet. But her sketch hangs in my office now. Reconstruction. It's not forgiveness. It's not forgetting. It's something stronger. Peace. Not permission. And the life I built? It stands. Solid. Chosen. Mine.